Hey everyone, I want to talk about some of the things we face in this everyday life as we go through our transformation or awakening. We can't spend all our time in the upper three chakras, so to speak. We have to deal with and manage the logistics of this material life. I used to be the typical consumer, fast asleep. I was living in Southern California, loving the weather and making a good living, when what I considered very strange events started happening to me. You can see my other videos on this. And then eventually it resulted in an illness, so I took a leap of faith by leaving my job, leaving California, and moved back home to the East Coast. I knew that the life I was living was not and had never been congruent with who I really was, and the stress and toxicity had made me sick in more ways than one. Feeling that my life truly depended on it, I walked away, and although it wasn't easy, I know that I saved my own life. I think so many of us don't realize the toxic situations that we're in, and then even when we do, we tend to overstay. So I'm thankful for the events that took place to wake me, disturbing as they were at the time. And I want to point out that downsizing doesn't mean you have to make less money. In fact, it's a great circumstance to be in if you have money, or like what you do when it's lucrative. It's one thing I would have done differently when I had the bigger paycheck. I would have downsized sooner. I also look back and see that I could have just found a job with less stress, but at the time I wasn't willing to take a lower salary or lose the prestige and the perks and the benefits. These are really big false narratives that we tell ourselves. So I had a big truckload of possessions shipped home, which filled up a pretty big storage unit. The more stuff we have, the more overwhelming it is to pack, so I would start weeks before, which is also proof that we don't need all the stuff that we have. In case you're wondering, I didn't have a job to go to, and this was on purpose, as I had decided to finally escape the corporate world, no matter what it took, that I just didn't resonate with or belong in. Plus, my kundalini had started moving, and I was entering my dark night, which made it difficult to be around a lot of personalities. I stayed with family at first, and with money from my benefits, I got my own apartment. Now I needed to empty out the storage unit, and I just couldn't believe how much stuff I had. It felt very heavy and like a burden. I wanted to travel light and reduce my footprint on this earth. Fast forward a few years, and I take another leap of faith to travel even lighter. This feeling had come on strong to make things easier to move through my life, through this world. I had moved a couple of times while home, and when my lease was up in my current place, I decided to pack up whatever would fit in my car and donate and sell everything else. As I was selling and donating my stuff, some people thought I was crazy. Folks from Facebook Marketplace would ask me, "Are you sure you want to sell this?" Yes. I'll admit there were a few things I think back on that I wish I had kept, because I could use it now, and I think some things I did keep that were important to me got lost in the moving shuffle. But the reality is that I didn't want to keep any more storage units or boxes of stuff that I never opened. So with the inside and roof of my car packed tight, off I went to visit a friend, fully intending to be a free spirit and go with the flow, and then a certain virus hit. So this certainly curtailed my travel plans, and I needed to accept that I was somewhat grounded for a while. I stayed in an Airbnb for a bit, and then I got my own place. I needed to add a few pieces of furniture, but other than that, I had no desire to buy a bunch of random stuff that I didn't need. While I downsized my belongings greatly, I wouldn't say I'm a minimalist. While I don't like clutter, I do like comfort. Part of my plan of downsizing was to get to what I call 0 point. I got rid of all my credit cards and debt, and for about 3 years, it was tough going to get by. I started doing gig work, which I actually love the flexibility and autonomy. It really suits my nature and allows time for contemplation, writing, being outside, and making videos. Eventually, I got to my goal of 0 point, having only what I need when I need it. I live in a nice, affordable place, and I own a car. Downsizing for me has been liberating. I would guess it's also easier when you're single and living on your own, so I understand it may not be possible for everyone. But if you find yourself in a similar situation where you've gone through a spiritual, personal transformation and you have a strong inclination to lighten the load, then I highly recommend it. I have less material things, but I feel that I have more now than ever. I don't think I'm living in my long-term location, and I'm getting the itch to explore again, pack up and head somewhere on the coast maybe, but who knows? One of the main things I've learned is that we can't plan, we can't predict, and we can't have specific expectations. I like Mike Tyson's quote, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." A little extreme, but you get the idea. I'm allowing it to unfold one day at a time. I feel like the monkey is off my back. And I'm no spring chicken either. I'm basically semi-retired, so it's never too late. And of course, I wish I had done all this a lot sooner in life, but I was so entrenched in the matrix, so conditioned by society, and letting my ego be in charge that my soul had to bonk me over the head to wake me up. Not only that, I was also carrying a lot of emotional pain from childhood that I had pushed down and ignored. Ignored in the sense that I believed we shouldn't dwell in the past, and we should take responsibility and move on, which I did. But these unresolved traumas don't go away. They don't vanish into thin air. When you experience a kundalini activation or enter the dark night of the soul or both, you find out very quickly what's taking up space in the shadow and the psyche, the heart and the soul. Not to mention things lingering from ancestral lineage. The clearing out and purification process is intense and can take years. I'm not proposing that downsizing or my lifestyle is right for everyone. I believe we're each experiencing what we're meant to in this lifetime, so someone else's experience could be the total opposite. But if downsizing and being your true self and doing what is your personal expression resonates with you, then don't be afraid to take a leap of faith. There'll be peaks and valleys and twists and turns, but most lives are like that anyway. Things rarely stay the same as life is full of surprises. Do I look back and wish I had done some things differently? Yes. But the reality is that I had to do what I did, how I did it, and when I did it. So the me that looks back now is not the me then, and my circumstances are now different. For instance, the years I took off from working when I moved home used up my savings, and I sure wish I had that money now. But I know that in that present moment, I was not capable of or willing to go back into the workforce, and I hadn't yet developed my own thing. I had lived the typical life for years where I worked my butt off, sometimes 80 hours a week, to make some company even more profitable than it already was. I admit I'm no expert, and I can't speak on the economy and how it works, but I know it needs to change to a more level playing field. I also know that we can't all be free spirits and roam the countryside. I personally contributed many years to the workforce, so been there, done that. And what I would change if I could go back is to contribute in a way that was more in line with my nature. I was always trying to put the square in the round hole. What I've gained now is peace of mind and the ease of living in a way that's congruent with my nature and my soul. Lots of people are living alternative lifestyles now, including families, breaking out of the mold of doing what we're told we should do. Some are moving to other countries where it's cheaper to live, and they like the lifestyle. Some are buying vans and RVs and living on the move. One idea with merit is for more groups of people to live together and share responsibilities and expenses. You may have noticed that everything is changing, and change can be painful. The old regime to a new regime, the changing of lifestyles and ideals and beliefs. Things go into chaos as it moves into a new ease. My guidance has been that we need to get our house in order, in the material, physical sense and spiritually. We need to get right with our soul and with all that is. I heard something recently, I think it was Caroline Myss, that said, "The body can't fix the soul, but the soul can fix the body." Something to that effect. When we get right with our soul, when we express our true nature, when we live in accordance with the bigger picture, beyond ourselves and beyond this physical existence, there's a holistic healing. I haven't had any health issues since leaving my old life, and my emotional life is far more balanced. There's still duality and contrast, good and bad days, ups and downs. It's a thing called life. We want to live a sovereign life. If you look up the definition of sovereign, you'll see ruler, crown, monarch. But if you look at the adjectives, you'll see supreme, unlimited, unrestrained, unrestricted. It's a life without fear where we live within our own personal power that's an aspect of all that is, God, the universe, and the cosmos. When we go through a spiritual transformation, we see things with new clarity. The blinders are removed, and we see this construct for what it is. We see how we've been conditioned since the day we were born. We see how the powers that be use fear and division and poverty to maintain control over the masses. We lose a lot of our own fear, and we're ready to take leaps of faith and make changes to pursue a more meaningful life, which will be different for each of us. My only caution is that you need to be okay with the bumps and bruises along the way. You may have to take a temporary job to get by, or live somewhere you wouldn't normally prefer, among many other things. It's not always easy getting our house in order. Some might not even see it as a struggle, but more of an adventure. Have you ever listened to Daryl Anka channel Bashar? From a non-physical perspective, Bashar sees everything we experience here as exciting. Bashar teaches to follow our excitement and live a more fluid existence and not see challenges as roadblocks, but as learning opportunities for growth. Keep in mind that things are always shifting constantly. We are shifting constantly, and what works today may not work tomorrow. Things might be in stasis for a while, but eventually things will change, or you will change. Sometimes I find myself jumping in and out of things like a quantum jumping. What resonates today might not resonate tomorrow because of all the shifting of energies and time speeding up, and probably lots of other things that we're not even aware of yet. As my guidance says, this is not a passing thing, so settle in and buckle up. And for me, the simpler things are in my life, the easier it is to maneuver and flow with the current times. Sometimes the practical, sensible thing is not the best thing. Whatever choice we make, there's always the negative and the positive, and always consequences, both good and bad. But again, perspective is key. Remember, our choices create our reality. Whatever it is you choose, I hope it comes from your heart and soul to follow your North Star and know that you will surmount whatever challenges you encounter as you flow within the laws of the universe and the truth of all that is.